Welcome to episode 58 of the What If South is Up podcast, where we dive into the art of world building and storytelling with a what if lens. Together, we explore, dissect, and expand the speculative and fantasy worlds of our own making, blending a bit of wisdom and a dash of whimsy. We aim to spark creativity for ourselves and for you. Get ready to reimagine and dig deeper as we journey from what if to what's possible. In other words, how to wing it like an author. My name is Christina X. Tina LaFave, and my made-up world is also my first made-up world, and it's called Cobb, a magical parallel Earth where colonization never happened in the Americas. I'm still an aspiring author, unlike my lovely and very prolific co-host, Mr. Derek Hall.
Prolific is still a very generous term.
Comparatively, prolific.
Yeah. Okay, fine. I'll give you that one, but it's still a generous term. Yeah, I'm not one of those guys with a 30-book ongoing series that came out in 2 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, try to repeat that in 30 years.
Yeah, no. All right. I am Derek Hall. I'm the creator of the world of Ketra, a sword and sorcery, young adult, new adult fantasy that is constantly evolving. Yeah, so that's me.
Well, hi.
Hi. We're
To
off
kick
to an
things
awkward start.
Awkward. To kick things off, and before we see which what if question chance brings up, let's do a potion check. Or maybe you have an elixir today. What you got for us, Derek?
I have more calf.
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 And I love how you spell that with a K.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's called in my world. It's just it's coffee, but new and improved with rotten grain water, aka whiskey.
There you go.
Yep. So
Good job.
That's where I'm at.
Well,
what do you have?
I have a pickle Bloody Mary.
Hell yes.
Don't know what they'd actually call it in Alaxac, my made-up world. They do have pickles, of course, but I don't know what they'd be thinking about a tomato drink, so I didn't know what to call it.
Do they have like greenhouses or whatever to be able to grow tomatoes that far north?
I don't. They do it today, but I don't know in my world that they would actually want to. I don't know.
Okay.
There's other things to grow.
Figure it out. God.
See, so much to figure out in the world.
I know. It's tough. It's tough.
It's tough. All right. Now with our elixirs in hand, let's talk worldsmithing. What breakthroughs, techniques, or tips have sparked new life into your world building, into your story, or maybe just into your lore? What do you have for today's Worldsmiths Workshop, Mr. Hall?
Well, I mentioned last time about having trouble connecting dots, like getting from the various landmarks in my plot to the next. I've managed to connect a few, but not as many as I would like, and things are moving slowly, but I'm trying something different. I have a pattern with my POV chapters where I'll go through in a cycle, like, we're going to do Inara for this chapter and Dravos for this chapter, and that sort of thing. So I laid out my next 5 chapters with marked the POVs for them, and then went in and just gave myself a bullet list of plot points for each chapter of what's going on and what I need to hit. And I'm hoping that will speed things up a little bit, because I don't have to just sit there and stare at a blinking cursor going, what do I put here? I at least have an idea of what I want to do. How to do it? No clue. What to do? We're closer. Hopefully.
But that's not plotting.
No, absolutely not.
It's mapping at the very most. It's mapping, not plotting.
It's more of a mind map than anything. It's going, okay, I need to get from this scene to that scene, but I'm doing it by way of this other POV character. So how do I connect those dots? Well, this happens, so this person needs to react to X, Y, and Z, and then make their conclusions based on that.
Okay, for listeners everywhere, that is actually a form of plotting, but don't tell Mr. Hall. Please do not tell him, because he will not do it.
I heard that.
So
I heard that. I don't plot, I mind map.
Okay. Now, as much for me, I don't have something for worldsmithing per se. This is more tying into us as writers, storytellers, world builders. I've been doing a deep dive into something called Clifton Strengths. Is this something you've heard of?
I have not.
So it's similar to Myers-Briggs,
Mm,
like the personality thing,
yeah.
but it's far more interesting. And they have a podcast on it now, and you can go up to Gallup and you can get the test from Gallup. Um, but I don't know. I've heard multiple writers talk about this, authors. I think the first author I heard it from was Sacha Black on the Rebel Author podcast. I think that was the first one. Um, and I don't want to go into deep detail here, but what's been most fascinating for me, so there's like 34 different strengths, and you're rated um, on those what's their top 5 strengths or top 10 strengths, and then
Uh-huh.
all strengths are numbered from 1 to 34 for you, and there's 4 different categories, and one of those categories is, uh, execution, which I am not good at, and none of my top strengths are in execution, so it helps me not only explain why it's hard for me to finish things,
Uh-huh.
but what I can do so that I can finish things. Um, and my top strengths, it's really helped me to understand why I like world building and what I can, who cares why we like it? Maybe you're saying to yourself, but it's really interesting to find out what parts of me make this exciting and how to leverage that. So, Clifton's strengths, pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Knowing why you like doing something kind of it goes to knowing yourself and how you work and how your brain works
Yeah. But
because
what's the best part of it is finding out
mm,
how to
excuse
the
me.
things I don't do well, h- how I can use my other strengths to overcome that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
as a story writer, as a writer. So, that's been very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I might have to look into that. I don't put a whole lot of stock in Myers-Briggs, but that sounds interesting.
I don't Myers-Briggs either. It's kind of what's the word I want to use? There's no depth to it.
Yeah.
Unlike the Clifton strengths. There's
Mhm.
a shit ton of depth there. Um okay. Now, as world builders, apparently we're moving on. As
Mhm.
world builders, it's essential to keep our creative skills sharp by exploring other realms and stories. Since our last episode, let's talk about which worlds we've been visiting and through which portals we've entered. And what most importantly what we took away from it, and I will start. I just finished up The Handmaid's Tale. So
Uh-huh.
they had their finale, their series finale,
Mhm.
and it's not getting a lot of good reviews. It's getting a pretty bad rap. The final episode, but I think it's exactly what it needs to be. It's what they would call from To Save a Cat story beats as the
Ooh.
final image.
Uh-huh.
All it does is just wraps up everybody's story, right? And it says where they're going and what they're going to be doing next and stuff like that. And if you actually read The Handmaid's Tale,
Uh-huh.
there's few things that happen, like, at the very, very end of the episode that you'll understand
Uh-huh.
why they did it this way. So, it was really fascinating, but I think it's exactly what it needed to be. It was just a great wrap up, and it had to be. If they hadn't done this, I think we had mentioned in one of our episodes, maybe in the last one, about you don't wanna end a story with too many questions or
Yeah.
with the wrong questions, and if
Yep.
they didn't have this final wrap up, then there would, I don't know. It was a
Yep.
quiet ending. The the episode before this was not a quiet ending. It was actually a great finale, climax, whatever.
Mhm.
But this was what it needed to be,
Yeah.
and I think it actually left room for something to move forward. So,
Fair enough.
what about you?
Well, in the name of mindless entertainment, I rewatched America the Motion Picture,
Mhm.
which is an animated, like adult animation thing in the vein of like Family Guy, American Dad. That's that sort of
No.
humor. It is 1,000% not historical at all. But it's a really fun ride if you can put aside how ridiculous it is. So they stacked the cast pretty deep. Um, but it's a lot of fun, and I like watching it every now and then, just because it's so ridiculous and it makes fun of everything while also pointing out a lot of flaws, like real
Yeah,
world flaws in things. Um, yeah, it's great. It's so wrong, but it's great. George Washington and Abraham Lincoln were not best friends. They did not grow up together. George Washington does not have chainsaw hands. Paul Revere was
that's
not raised by horses.
that's
Lots of
hilarious.
weird stuff. Lots of little like Easter eggs and nods to other franchises. There's a whole scene that's basically a rip off of Fast and the Furious. It's hilarious, but don't expect any amount of appropriate history. It's-
Okay, I won't.
yeah, it's funny.
So, are you ever gonna write something in this vein?
In that vein,
Yeah.
utterly ridiculous.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know.
Is that something that would interest you?
It could, but I don't have the quick wit for it.
Your slow wit could be made quick on paper.
Not sure if I should be flattered or offended. Um, I I I don't think on my feet that well. I don't have comebacks like that. And if I did write it, I'm pretty sure everyone would hate it. So, which to be fair, critics hated this movie. So,
Yeah.
but I enjoy it just because of how stupid it is. And that's not really my shtick. I'm working on a couple of different forms of like historical fantasy. We're taking history and bending it and adding magic and things like that. But um yeah, I don't know that I'd do anything quite that insane. But we'll see, tides can
There you
change.
go. Well, on another portal or same portal, different world, I was watching Silo. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. And so it's kind of a dystopian thing. Bunch of
Mhm.
people live underground and you can't figure out why. It's another one of these things with a long drawn out mystery for the
Mhm.
story. It's not a mystery, but the
Right.
story's mysterious and you're trying to figure out what's going on and it's very sci-fi.
Mhm.
And this one character is, I don't know, she's MacGyver-esque
Mhm.
and I'm like, I'm watching her what she's doing, and I'm like, how can I wanna write her. I wanna write that kind of, you know, knowledge, ability,
Mhm.
MacGyver-esqueness. I just don't I'm just fascinated that somebody else could pull it off, and then I gotta try to pull it off myself, and I'm scared. Anyways, now it's time for World Smith Darlings. Each of us will share a few words that paint a vivid picture of another world. It could be a passage from another author, or perhaps just something that missed the mark on our side. These might be snippets we're proud of. They could be dead darlings. Maybe they didn't make the final cut. But, anyways, we're going to share them today. Are you ready to dive into some world building wins or maybe a woe?
Sure.
All right, you get to go first.
Oh boy. The harbor district of Vallis sat on a wide stone shelf at the bottom of a towering cliff. Warehouses and other utility buildings, even a tavern or two, lined the base of the cliff, and the stone walls lined the top of it. I can't read. People were everywhere, moving goods from one place to another. Most were human, which was a jarring difference from every other time he had been to Vallis, and the few elves he saw not only lacked collars, but appeared to be in charge.
Ouch. Ouch. That tells you what the elves are thought of in in his world.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. That was a great
This is a
snip.
villain POV from book 3, so.
Yeah, that was a great switch, We go from this, lovely little I'm looking at this seaside, world, whatever, and this little bit of at the end, you're like, "Ooh, who are you? Good job."
Why, thank you.
Why, thank you. Alright.
Indubitably.
Okay. Mine is from a short story I wrote 1,000 years ago, and, maybe I should pick it back up, but this is well, you'll figure it out. Devon stared at the Ivory Queen. the furrow above his brow growing deeper as he tried to predict what her next move would be, when she would make that next move. To her right stood her right-hand man, the bishop, shorter than the Ivory Queen. Devlin chuckled as he pictured Bishop having to tilt his head up to look at the Queen in the eye, and that ridiculous minaret-shaped hat toppling off his head. Devon's smirk evaporated as he recalled the loss of his own right-hand man. Ooh.
Yeah. I'm genuinely curious about this now because that's a fun perspective on a game of chess.
Yeah, so
It's also
thank you.
giving me mild, like, Indian in the cupboard vibes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, just
Huh.
having to do with the size disparity and kind of
Mhm.
shrinking down to that smaller point of view. Yeah, that could be really
Well, that's
fun.
cool.
Yeah,
Yep, maybe I'll pick this back up one day.
yeah, you should. It sounds
Yeah.
fun.
All right. Now that we've shared, let's move on to our main event. And happens to be our favorite game, World Builders Roulette. Each week, we place the fate of our worlds in the hands of the D20, letting it choose from our list of wild, speculative, and magical scenarios. Will this week's roll transform our worlds, or perhaps inspire an entirely new one? Only the dice know. So, Mr. Derek, let's see where they will lead us. You got your D20 handy?
I do.
Okay.
All right, number 12. What if?
Again.
I know.
Was that last week?
No, that is not what I rolled. I read it wrong. Let's try that again. Number 7. What if
My lucky number.
people could temporarily shapeshift into animals, but only really mundane ones like sloths, hedgehogs, and squirrels?
Oh, oh, serves them right. Did they get to choose?
No.
Oh, or did it say, okay, turn me into an animal, and then whatever animal came up next is what they turn into?
They have to roll the dice and figure out what they're going to turn into.
I love that. Oh, that's awesome. Uh, no wolverines, no wolves, no eagles,
Oh, no. Uh-uh.
no sharks.
What are you going to be today? I'm a muskrat.
Why? Why are they changing into animals once in a while? That's hilarious.
The only thing I could see would be changing into something small could let you, like, sneak in somewhere or get into a small area or something. You know, you dropped something behind the dryer and you need to go get it and you only have 3 inches, so now you're a ferret. Like, I could see that being useful,
I could see that
but
being useful. But what if you
realistically,
rolled the die and you come out to be, like a warthog? I
you
mean,
you wanna
it's
spy on
not.
somebody, turn into a house cat, you know.
But if you're rolling the die, you don't get to choose.
Exactly.
Hmm,
Is a warthog really
interesting.
that mundane, though?
Well, he's not gorgeous or sexy. I mean, I would say mundane as in not something somebody would. I mean, he's no wolf, right?
Yeah, fair, fair.
I mean, he's mean as all get out. I wanted to say a different word, but I held back.
Mhm.
Um, Anyways, what if people could temporarily shape shift into animals, but only mundane ones? Like, okay, so I kind of like this as in there's some kind of um was it law that you cannot turn into something that is carnivorous. Let's just say
Yeah.
that's kind of the law.
Well, I mean, that rules out a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but they don't want you to be able to kill.
What about omnivores?
I don't know. What about them? Maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying. Maybe there's some kind of
House
law
cats
in the
are
land.
carnivores. Dogs are
Ye
carnivores.
Yes, they
They're
are. Let's
mundane.
just they're mundane,
Mhm.
unless you're a mouse, then the cat's not so mundane. Um,
I mean, okay, fine, but
so first of all, why would it only be mundane animals? Second of all, why is it only temporary? And third of all, why would they do this? So those are 3 big questions that you need to
I mean,
answer before you can make this part of your world.
it's kinda leaning into the animagus idea from Harry Potter. Professor McGonagall
Oh.
can turn into a house cat and
Mhm.
display her butthole to all of her students, which still bothers me. Um, sorry, the things I stay awake at night thinking about. And, like, Sirius turns into a dog. Granted, he turns into an Irish wolfhound, which is freaking huge and not
But not
mundane.
everybody can
But
do it, just
yeah,
these
but
people can.
certain people. But if everybody could do it, like, see, I have trouble figuring out what the specific utility of that kind of ability would be other than hiding in
Mhm.
plain sight.
Mhm.
Even in a Harry Potter world, like, why? Because it's a lot of work to figure out how to do that. Not everybody can do it, and even when you do figure it out, you have to be registered with the ministry. It's like owning a machine gun. Everybody has to know because it's dangerous. But why?
I
You know.
struggle with why would anybody want to do this?
Right.
I'm sitting around, it's Saturday, me and my husband just went out for brunch. I'm home now. Why would I turn temporarily into an animal, and why would that be something that would be good for a story?
If you got somebody that needs to be sneaky and, like there's a size limit, okay, fine. You're a mouse now or a rat or a cat or whatever.
But again, that's a negative character trait, the greed,
Exactly.
the sneaky. So only people that have, you know, malicious intent can do that or will do this? Mm.
Maybe you wanna turn into a sparrow to fly up and inspect your roof. I don't know.
Now see, that makes sense, right? But you have
Like,
to choose that unless you keep rolling the dice until you get to Sparrow.
could you imagine just, like, standing in your yard going, "I need to clean the gutters," and then being like, "Nope, hedgehog won't work. Nope, ferret won't work. Nope, snake won't work. Nope." You turn into something that doesn't have hands or paws, and you're just like, "Well, how do I roll now?" Uh, wait for it to
Well,
excuse me.
I can say there is
Wait for it
this
to wear
interesting
off and try again? Like,
there's this interesting concept, it was written by Kenneth Meadows. It's called the Native American s horoscope or signs or something like that, and
mhm,
there's 12 signs, they're all animals. One's a salmon, one's a raven, one's a mouse, and what's the whole thinking behind this is that when that animal has a certain perspective, and
yeah,
not only real world perspective, but it's how they see the world as a concept.
mhm,
So I could almost see this as like a ritualistic thing, you know.
mm,
So instead of going to Bible study, right,
mhm,
you're turned into an animal so you can get a perspective on their view of the natural world.
right,
Um, I could see that. That would be interesting to me. Like,
yeah,
you have a kid that can't I don't know, is doing something wrong, whatever it is, not a ki I wouldn't do it to a child, but you know what I mean, there's a teenager that is, you know, being rude, so make him into a squirrel or something just so he can see what it's like to be helpless. I don't know. So, I
turn
can kinda see
Draco
it as
into a ferret.
I could I could see this as a ritualistic thing.
Yeah,
Um, I can't see any other except for nefarious reasons, I can't see any other reason why I would want to turn into a sloth in the middle of a Sunday afternoon.
yeah, and then, like, what if you turn into a salmon when you roll the dice, but you're nowhere near water? What now?
Those are things we'd have to consider.
You're
So,
right, like, there's a lot of
you can't
complications with that. It's a fun
well
concept, but I don't see how I would use it at
they
all.
wouldn't get that die, they would get the other they would get you they wouldn't get the Pacific Northwest die, they would get, if there's no water around, then you gotta give them the, desert die, whatever.
Oh, oh, yeah, mhm.
I don't know. I think it's an interesting concept, I just can't see why it's useful or how it helps tell a story.
Yeah, well, going to the D&D side of things, like, you can play a druid, and druids have the ability to shapeshift into animals, and they get to pick, but,
Mhm.
you're in the middle of a fight, and you can turn into a bear or, whatever, a wolf. a giant spider, whatever you want to turn into. But you have a size limit. So whatever you turn into can't be larger than your normal character. So if you're a dwarf, whatever you turn into is going to be relatively small. If you're a halfling, whatever you turn into is going to be really small. So that puts limits on it and
So
forces the
you
player
can't
to be
change your mass.
forces the
You
player
can't.
to be creative.
Hmm.
Is this a similar situation where if you're 300 pounds and you decide to turn into a ferret, is it now a 300-pound ferret the size of a sea lion?
That would be scary.
That would be hilarious. But, and then my brain just went to that like chase scene at the end of The Emperor's New Groove where they're just popping random potions and turning into random animals and being like, this is not working. uh, jumping off a cliff and drinking a potion in midair going, please be something with wings.
I mean, I could see if there was something like a food scarcity, right? And
Yeah,
so if someone
yeah.
gets hungry, turn them into a squirrel until they become satiated, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't. I think it's
There's
a
a lot of
fun
variables here.
concept. There's a lot of variables. I think it's a fun concept. I can't think of how I can make it other than ritualistic.
Yeah.
I can't see a way of making this fit into my world, nor can I think of a story that would be based on this and interesting.
I mean, I could see it going an interesting direction. So going back to Harry Potter, because that's probably the most well-known example of this sort of thing that we have. But going back to Harry Potter, Peter Pettigrew is an animagus that turns into a rat because he is a
Mhm.
rat. Um, but he stays as a rat for like 10 years, 11 years or whatever. And then when he comes back, he keeps a lot of the rat mannerisms and, the
Mhm.
twitchiness and pawing at his face and things like that. So if it didn't just randomly wear off in our situation and you could stay, would the characteristics and the mannerisms carry over when you did change back?
I would like in my ritualistic example, it would just be like a lesson learned. It wouldn't
Mm.
be like you would adopt those characteristics in any way, or they'd bleed into
Mhm.
your personality.
And, oh, you've been a dog for 6 months and you decide to come back and now you're just randomly peeing on trees. Like,
Yeah. That's
and
yeah, see, I wouldn't say it would be like that.
I think it would be really funny, but,
It'd
um,
also be very interesting from a scientific perspective
mhm.
to be able to turn into these animals to see why they do certain things, you know, to
I
learn
mean,
more about the
okay,
natural
yeah,
world.
or like, do I don't know, muskrats see color or, something like that. It'd be a
Yeah,
good way to figure it out. But beyond scientific study and nefarious things or your
and
ritualistic
ritualistic.
purpose, yeah, your ritualistic
See,
purpose, I don't see a use for it unless you had full control over what you changed into and the whole mass disparity didn't matter.
yep,
So, if you could turn into a horse and pull your wagon, you know, cool.
that makes sense.
That's useful.
Yeah.
Turn into, a fish and cross that river or whatever.
Turn
Um,
into a dog and find your missing kid.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah. Or, you have a magical police officer that's looking for a fugitive that turns into a bloodhound and just chases him down.
yeah.
Like something like that could be useful. You could apply it to a society, but you'd have to bend a lot of the pre-existing rules for such things. But rules are meant to be broken. So, it could be done. I feel like I would need a completely fresh world to make this functional.
Yeah, I wouldn't wanna bring it into my world per se. Maybe, I don't know. I might be able to fit it like we were just talking about. What if somebody is missing their kid? So they go
Mhm.
to the town I
Shapeshifter?
don't no, they go to the town, apothecary,
Uh,
and they buy a something so they could become a bloodhound,
mhm.
for a short amount of time. That would be interesting.
Okay, so
If
do it with, like, alchemy and potions or that sort of thing.
yeah,
That that kinda makes sense. That
yeah.
could work. So, yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things that sounds fun, but the more you think about it, the more you're like, "That's a lot of work."
That's a lot of work. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of work. I like the idea of like, I don't know where I left my car in the dark parking lot, so I'm gonna turn into a hawk to go find it. So I take my
Yeah,
hawk pill, because I
right.
bought a box of hawk pills
But at that point, why do you need a car?
because
Just
you can
fly
only do it
home.
temporary. Because I got a kid.
Just fly home.
I
You
have a
have a
kid
whole
with me,
box
and
of pills.
but I have groceries,
Hawks can carry a lot of weight.
not enough to feed a family of 4.
Turn into an albatross. Something bigger. But yeah, no, lots of fun ideas there.
Yep, lots of fun ideas. Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
Are you a world builder? Crafting your first universe? Perhaps a seasoned creator with realms under your belt? Whether you be a D&D game master, a writer, author, or simply a storyteller, we'd love for all the worldsmiths to join us on the What If South is Up podcast. Reach out on our Facebook page to send us your pitch. We'd be honored to make you and your world the star of an episode, maybe even a dozen if you're cool and fun and like us. Moving on, we'd love your help on something else as well. Our What If list is always open for new, imaginative, magical scenarios. If you've got a unique twist or a world-shaking idea, send it our way and we'll give you full credit. After all, who wouldn't love a free plug for their made-up world? Visit our Facebook page or drop us a line at whysouthisup@gmail.com. We can't wait to see what you can dream of. So, how do we find you, Derek, on the interwebs?
Well, my website is DerekHallAuthor.com, which is still temporarily down for a redesign and rebuild and update. But you can find me as D Hall Author just about anywhere, including, as we mentioned last time, the YouTubes, which also has every episode of our podcast on it, and our new YouTube channel specifically for the podcast, which is at What If South is Up.
Thank you for reminding me and our listeners. You did a great job there. My website is uniquelyxtina.com, but I can be found on just about any social as uniquelyxtina. I'm mostly active on Facebook because I'm old as dirt. I'm a little bit on Insta, and I love trolling. Not trolling. What's it called when you watch but you don't do anything?
Scrolling?
No, I'm just like watching TikTok a lot. Anyways, that was it. That was our show. We did good.
We did a thing.
We did a thing again.
Yep.
We did a thing again, but don't sing that song.
We do a thing occasionally.
Yes, occasionally. Not consistently, but we do the things.
Yeah, we do things.
We do things. We do things well.
Things.
I like our podcast.
I'm going to turn into a bear and go hibernate.
Okay, you go do that.
Mm-hmm.